Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode. Today we are talking about Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. I'm going to be going through my thoughts on the film. I loved it, by the way. I loved it. We're going to be going through some of the comments that you made in the community tab, discussing some of the plot points, any plot holes that we have noticed, and maybe some answers for that and theories around it. We're going to be discussing the magical beasts that were in it. So many magical creatures to talk about. And going to be talking about, for me personally, I just want to discuss what things I think is a really important factor within this film is the separating of relationships. So yeah, just spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie yet, don't watch this. Just stop, click away. Because you don't want to hear any of the spoilers, don't want to ruin the film for you. I think it's been long enough now that we've protected the secrets. So, anybody who has now watched the film, let's discuss. So first of all, my thoughts on the film. It has been given really mixed reviews by a lot of people. 7.1 on IMDb, 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, 53% on Metacritic. And personally, I can't see where that comes from. Okay, maybe a little bit, but I loved the film so much. I mean, I was hyped for it before and everything that goes into it. I was looking forward to it. For me, I love the Fantastic Beasts, and we had plenty of that. We had loads of new magical creatures that we never even heard of, and some that we have. It was really exciting to see them in the movie. I think, for me, a sign of a good movie is when it's coming to an end, I don't want it to stop. Like, I'm literally like, when you don't know how long a film is and you go in there, which is what I kind of did, I didn't keep track of time, I was just like, I hope that only an hour has gone past when maybe like 2 hours has gone past. And so that was a good mark of how much I enjoyed it. And I was literally paying non-stop attention to it the whole way through because it was just so engrossing, all that was going on. It felt non-stop, and there were loads of different storylines carrying on at the same time. Built really well. So personally, I loved it. But obviously it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and we'll be discussing some of the reasons for that maybe in this video as well. So let's start with the magical beasts. So let's start with this guy. The Zuru was, for me, one of the most beautiful creatures in the whole of the film. It was amazing the way this new creature that we haven't seen yet in the Wizarding World before got introduced. Obviously we had seen it in the trailer, but it's not in any of like the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them books. So it was really nice to have a new creature that we've not encountered, and such a powerful one, something that has new abilities that we may have not come into encounter before. That moment where it leaped, just insane. And with that we saw loads of other magical creatures. We saw Nagini turn into a snake, we saw a Kappa. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get to see the Kappa's abilities like truly shown. We only got to see the parasite that it has. It would have been really nice to see Newt potentially depowering the Kappa by tricking it to bow its head and the water coming out and it not having that magical ability to then take it down. I wonder if they did have that in, but they took it out. It'd be interesting to know, because I know they had a lot of deleted scenes. In reading some of them for the reviews and watching some of the trailers from some of the interviews done with the cast, there were a lot of things that were missed out of the film because the director wanted to get, you know, a choice from all the best and really deliver the best they could from some of those scenes. So it was really nice to see the Zuru, the Kappa. We got to see, obviously, huge Niffler love. I mean, there was plenty Niffler heroics in the film as well. It's like he's the hero of the film. He was the one who got the blood pact, right? So he potentially led to Grindelwald being destroyed by Dumbledore, because eventually that's got to be broken somehow, right? So it was great to see the Nifflers and the baby Nifflers, who was so cute. The Augury. We got to see a slight scene of this guy. He's known as a Lucrotter, a magical beast that has a moose-like appearance. And watching Newt ride the Kelpie was cool as well. One of my favourites thing that we saw was the Matagot, which come from French folklore. They look like large black cats with blue eyes and employed by the French Ministry of Magic for various tasks. They were awesome to see, and they only attack when attacked. And when you do attack them, they multiply. So yeah, pretty good to guard a ministry. We saw the Augury from time to time, which was cool to see. So for me, there was plenty of old and new beasts in the film. Next, one thing that I really want to talk about in this film was love, or the breaking of almost all love relationships in this film, or just completely separation from their counterparts. So illustrated best, I think, by this image, we have Dumbledore and Grindelwald, who obviously Dumbledore has affection for Grindelwald. Whether it's reciprocated, we don't know as of yet. But, you know, it was strong enough to form a blood pact. Did Grindelwald actually trick Dumbledore into, or use his love against him because he knew Dumbledore would potentially be somebody who could beat him in the future, form a blood pact as a result of it? But he's definitely threatened by him still, even though he knows he can't harm him. So obviously because he wants Credence to be able to destroy Dumbledore. But so we see this massive separation between them and probably as they were when they were younger and who they are now. And that separation has then like echoed out into all the new relationships we have in this film. So we can see Credence and Nagini being pulled apart by Credence siding with Grindelwald and Nagini staying behind. We see Leta Lestrange sacrificing her life. I don't know what she was doing. For me, a lot of people were disappointed by that, and I agree with that. There wasn't that kind of, like, one, you didn't see it coming, but you didn't see it coming, you didn't feel that, like, oh no, about it. And I was just wondering why Leta did that. And I was thinking, I need to watch the film again, because I think it's that moment where, that is the only moment where Grindelwald actually left his spell of fire, that his circular ring of fire around him that allowed followers to go through, but anybody against him to get burned to pieces. And that was the only bit he came out to grab her hand. Now, I believe it's then after that, when she strikes him, and then she gets burnt, that the would be the only point for the Niffler to be able to take the blood pact, or even before he cast the spell. I'm pretty sure I saw something being flung across the floor, and I think it was the Niffler. Definitely confirm or deny what you saw. Check that, because I think that may have been what she was doing. But then how does she know that Niffler would be going for it? I don't know. No, she wouldn't. She wouldn't know. So I don't know about that one. That's a really interesting. But you saw obviously Leta and her relationship with Theseus being torn apart by her death. And with that, you also saw that, you know, Leta and Newt, you know, who was she saying I love you to, really, in that? What's she saying to both of them? I imagine both of them, to some extent, she probably just lives them in different ways or have loved at different times. Then we see at the top of this picture, Newt and Tina. So something which had, you know, the beginnings of had occurred within the first film, and definitely we showed signs of that still being present and almost built within this film. But Tina, thinking that Newt had been engaged to Leta, has found a new or a boyfriend, and that's going to cause a problem and a separation of their love. So we didn't see much, you know, progression with them, that other than him explaining what had happened and her being notably shocked, like, oh no, damn, I'm gonna have to break up with this guy I'm with. Next, I think one of the most shocking separations for most people, definitely for me, was that of Queenie and Jacob. Queenie and Jacob in the first film were that, you know, these guys were probably the most in love with each other and had progressed to that point than anybody in the film. And even then we saw them being pulled apart by Grindelwald's tongue, you know, the ability to convince people that, you know, using her... I think Grindelwald is excellent at manipulation and propaganda, and one of my worries with that is that he can't really use that against Queenie. So Queenie must be able to see into his thoughts and see that he's genuinely not tricking her, unless he's trained to be able to reject her abilities, which I kind of got the impression of, because there was no obviously scenes where she was reading his mind. She almost seemed enchanted. I mean, the problem is, Queenie, you wouldn't know, because when she's generally quite, I don't know, wispy. She's just generally quite quirky. So it's unsure. But obviously her intent with siding with Grindelwald is that one day that she would be able to marry Jacob without the MACUSA being against it. And with that, I think I felt for more than any other character a sense of, damn, I feel for you, guy, than Jacob. Next, let's talk about this lady. The biggest plot hole in the film, which a lot of people have obviously picked out and aren't too happy about, is Harry Potter lore around Professor Minerva McGonagall. Professor McGonagall made an appearance in the film. Some have argued that it may not be Minerva McGonagall, but an other professor. However, I have an argument to that. We'll come to that in a minute. So the idea behind this is that Professor Minerva McGonagall wasn't even born at the time of this film which it's set in, and therefore she couldn't exist. Now that's if we are to go by Harry Potter lore, the book side of things. When we come into the film world, canon is very different because Minerva McGonagall in the film is a lot older, definitely closer to Dumbledore's age than she was, I think. Now some have thought that it would be her sister or a relative of her. Now I was led to believe that this could be true, but I'm gonna play it for you. So stop all arguments of whether it is or isn't McGonagall that we know and love. It is. In IMDb it's listed as Minerva McGonagall, and here we see Jude Law talking about a deleted scene. He says, I had a scene with another professor, female professor, which didn't make it, which I wish it had because I just love that she's back in this world. It was at Hogwarts, yes. Well, she's in the film, but fleetingly. And we had this scene where she really got to do the full works. That's meant to say works. So like, this confirms that he was referring to Professor McGonagall, a professor at Hogwarts, fleetingly appeared, deleted scene, did involve Minerva McGonagall. But it's not that uncommon for film lore to not be the same. As we've already said, Minerva McGonagall was much older in the films, and if we're going off film canon, realistically, that could have been Minerva McGonagall. You know, being that she, in that part, was younger than Dumbledore, and she was younger than Dumbledore in Harry Potter era. Whether or not it was intentional, I don't think it was, because thinking about, okay, this is a magical world, how can Minerva McGonagall fit book canon at that time? You know, was she able to use some device to go back in time? I don't think so. And J.K. Rowling hasn't responded to any, you know, comments on it. Therefore, I think she's just going to let it lie and just be like, yeah, okay, move on for it. It shouldn't ruin the whole film. I was ready to give her a buy on that one fact. It must get like crazy muddled when you're dealing with loads of different canons and different movies and different everything. So finally, let's talk about the biggest plot point in the film, the ending. So Grindelwald goes up to Credence with a baby phoenix chickling or whatever, and this little chickling turns into a phoenix. We already knew the meaning of this when it came about, was that, you know, Dumbledore had already said that phoenixes usually find Dumbledores in a time of great need. And you can't argue that Phoenix, pow. Did it go to him, or did Grindelwald know this fact and think, hey, if I'm going to make a lie and I want to convince this guy, I'm going to do that through this. So if we're led to believe that it's a lie, who is he? We know he's not a Lestrange now. We know that he was on this boat with the Lestrange family going to America. So who else around that time was doing that? I think we'll find out obviously more about that in future films. If we're to believe that's true, I think that Grindelwald knows who his real family is, because they placed the Lestrange family tree in the tomb. He knew at that point that Credence wasn't a Lestrange, and therefore he could have then sought some of the information as to discover who his parents were. He could have sought some way to find whose parents were, but after that, or if he's trying to... One of the problems is, though, if you're trying to set somebody against Dumbledore, don't make the name Dumbledore. Why would you make that lie up? Oh yeah, go kill your family member now. I don't see that having any gain, so I don't see what he would have to gain by lying to him. Then you've got to argue the fact of, if he's a Dumbledore, how is he a Dumbledore? So we know about Aberforth and Ariana. We know that Aurelius begins with an A and their father wanted to name their whole line with A's. So yes, that element is feasible, but obviously could have just made up the name Aurelius. We've never heard the name Aurelius in the whole of the Harry Potter series. So it would be a bit of a stretch though on that part to say for a whole film Dumbledore never mentioned his brother or uncle or whatever relation he is, cousin. So we didn't hear any of that. But if he was another relation to him, was he one of his siblings' offspring? You know, Aberforth could have had a child with somebody that he didn't know about. Now, the tale of Ariana and Grindelwald and Albus and Aberforth is a really interesting one in terms of how she came to die. Because, as it goes, basically, Ariana was attacked by 3 Muggle children. She then, after that, would not practice magic. Her father, Percival, then attacked the Muggle boys, and for that he was locked up in Azkaban. He didn't give a reason. He feared that by doing so potentially could lead to Ariana being sent to St. Mungo's hospital. So then she was living with her 2 brothers and her mother Kendra, and she was suppressing her magic, apparently having rages. Aberforth Dumbledore went to school, and in an instance where Ariana had one of her rages, she ended up killing her mother. And Kendra's death then brought Albus and Aberforth back. Grindelwald appeared at that point, and Albus and Grindelwald became good friends. Aberforth then felt like he had abandoned his brother and left Ariana alone. Later on, there was an altercation between Grindelwald and Aberforth, and it actually resulted in Grindelwald casting the Cruciatus Curse against Aberforth. A fight ensued, and it's said that in that duel, the Cruciatus Curse was then cast on her, and she subsequently died. From what we know about it, it sounds like she was an Obscurial, just like Credence, and therefore, because she suppressed the magic, it resulted in that developing. And so it does bring into question, did she actually die then, or did they think she died in the same way that Credence did, and instead he actually just whisked away? So at this point, obviously, it's all just speculation. If I was to hedge my bets on it, I would actually say that he's not lying. I don't think he has anything to gain by telling Credence he's a Dumbledore. In fact, he has something to lose by saying, you have a relative that's alive that, you know, I'm going to ask you to kill later and somehow manipulate you to kill somehow. So I don't feel like he has anything to gain by that, and it actually would probably push him closer to the other side. So I think he's doing that to obviously build trust, because he knows that might be the truth that they ultimately come to anyway, and wants to control that in his way. So it's difficult to know at this time, obviously, but I'm going to hedge my bets, and there's some relation there. I don't think he's a brother of Dumbledore, no way. Cousin, distant relative, maybe. But I want to know all of your thoughts on this for sure. So make sure to post a comment in this video below. It'd be great to discuss with you guys. What I'm going to do is, obviously because this is a big long video, I'm going to put the second half of this video, which is going to be going through and talking with your points, in a separate video. So that's all for this one. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed the film as much as I did. Let me know your thoughts on it and thoughts about some of the comments and theories we discussed in this episode. Okay, well that's all for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have, please hit the like button and hit subscribe if you want to keep up to date with future content. That's all from me. See you guys soon.